The New York Giants face the Carolina Panthers Sunday in Munich, Germany for the international game. A pair of 2-7 teams squaring off. The battle of the
it's the battle of mid. It's the battle of mid. That's what it is.
All right, Brandon. Exactly. Brandon Olsen of New York Giants on SI joins me. I'm Patricia Traina of New York Giants on SI. And Brandon, could you pick any two worst teams for this international showcase?
I think that the NFL needs to be investigated for crimes against humanity for having the Giants and the Panthers play in this game and then having Machine Gun Kelly perform at halftime. I think that you don't get worse than that. Yeah, I think that it's suspicious. NFL needs to be investigated for what they're doing over here.
Well, certainly for the quality of football that we could expect. But let's talk about this because, look, any given Sunday, yada, yada, yada. And who knows, maybe this will be one of the better games of the year. You never know. Let's start off with the Giants. They're at a crossroad. I think we can agree they're at a crossroad with the quarterback situation. If they lose this game, probably not a stretch to say that Daniel Jones is going to be benched, I would think, after this week. But that being said, Brandon, Daniel hasn't played horribly. I mean, he hasn't played above the X's and O's, but he hasn't been the sole reason for the Giants' struggles the last, 4 games or so. When you look at his game, where does he continue to come up short in his game, and what advantages in facing the Carolina Panthers, who have a bad defense, can Daniel maybe capitalize on?
Yeah, I think that you definitely get the benefit of facing the Carolina Panthers, which are the worst pass defense on a per play basis in the entire NFL right now. So that opens up. And like you mentioned, if you're playing poorly or if you lose this game, not a stretch to say that he shouldn't be the quarterback or that he might not be the quarterback, especially if you lose this game because your offense can't score. Like if you get into a shootout and you lose this game, you can at least say, hey, I did my part and deal with that and live with that. I do think that, first off, he's just not playing good football. And it's weird because earlier in this season we were talking about it and it's like, hey, he's being really decisive. He's playing with confidence. And then after a very good game against the Seahawks, it seems like that disappeared. I don't know what it is, but it feels like after he played one of his better games in a long time, that's when he really got worse. And that to me, I'm very confused by that. And that doesn't make a ton of sense for how that worked out. But I feel like that was where he kind of started to fall off. And the Bengals game was just horrendous football. And I feel like we went from a guy that for a couple weeks was making quick decisions, was making good decisions, and now he just stopped doing that. I don't know if it was once injuries started hitting the offensive line that he started Sam Darnolding, I guess, and seeing ghosts. I don't know what it was, but it seems like the guy that was playing decent football and decisive football all of a sudden stopped doing that. And he started taking longer to throw the football. I mean, it was the Eagles game. He had a time to throw on average of almost 3 seconds. And that's not how you win games. That's not how you have successful offenses. He's just been struggling and indecisive. And I feel like he's regressed back to what has been, I think, a fatal flaw in his game for the majority of his career at this point.
If you bench Daniel Jones, though, is it fair to say that Brian Daboll is stuck between a rock and a hard place? Because if you bench Jones after saying, oh, he gives us the best chance to win, and now you put him on the bench because of that injury guarantee, what kind of effect do you think that might have on the locker room?
I don't know if they would be too bothered by it, just because the way that I look at it is, yes, you bench him and you may be saying, hey, it's because of the injury guarantee that we don't want him to get hurt and we want to keep him there. But I feel like also you can say, hey, the information available has changed. The data has changed. So while I said he gives us the best chance to win, now over recent weeks, And in this game, if he does struggle against a very bad defense, you could say, well, the context has changed. It's not just I'm going back on him because he's playing poor. It's that the context has changed. And so I think that you can sell that as we're trying something to give us a better chance to win. And it might not be good. Look, Drew Lock, maybe not a good option. Tommy DeVito, maybe not a good option. Anybody, maybe not a good option. But I do think that right now we know Daniel Jones hasn't been a good option this year.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned this Carolina defense, which is probably the worst, if not one of the worst. From a Giants perspective, where can they best expose this defense?
Honestly, I think everywhere. I think that this defense is just horrendous. Like Ejiro Evero, the defensive coordinator, great job, but I think that they just don't have the talent right now. It's as simple as that. They're a defense that doesn't have the talent. They have been banged up. Jadeveon Clowney is getting that veteran rest, but he's also got a knee thing going on. This secondary has been banged up repeatedly. They've been dealing with that. It's just a defense right now that doesn't have a lot of talent at the top and is now forced to play their depth that can't start over those guys. And so I do think that right now they don't have talent. I think their pass rush especially has been bad this year. I mean, a big part of that, first off, they traded Brian Burns away. So that's not going to help your pass rush. But also Derek Brown being injured and missing the remainder of the season doesn't help them when he was supposed to be your big pass rusher. I think their pass rush is very bad. And I think that the injuries in the secondary have made their coverage worse. And so I think passing the ball is the way to attack this Panthers defense successfully. But I do think that there's weaknesses throughout this whole defense. I mean, look, I like Josie Jewell at Iowa, but Josie Jewell shouldn't be a starting linebacker in the NFL in 2024. He's just not that. He wasn't that with the Broncos. He's not that with the Panthers. So I think that at every level, there are fatal flaws on that Panthers defense right now.
You mentioned the passing game. Two-part question for you. Malik Neighbors, since coming back from the concussion, I don't know if it's just teams have been playing him differently, but seems to have cooled off just a smidge. He's going up against J.C. Horn, I would think, in this game. Talk about that matchup, and also how have teams maybe changed up how they played Malik Neighbors to get him to cool down just a smidge?
I feel like that it's a two-pronged question. It's a two-pronged answer. Going up against J.C. Horn, you're going to have to be physical. I would expect to see Brian Dable probably put Malik Neighbors in motion and get him the ball quickly, if you can, over the middle of the field. Because the thing is, the Panthers also, you played the Steelers a few weeks ago, who played more cover three than anybody else. Second on the list there is the Panthers. And so you can assume that on basically 50% of your snaps, they're going to be playing cover three. And so you can kind of work around that and say, okay, well, if J.C. Horn is on Malik Neighbors, let's get him away from J.C. Horn if we don't want him to deal with J.C. Horn. We can put him on the other side of the field. We can move him around. We can make him attack over the middle of the field. And J.C. Horn is probably going to be playing cover three and probably not going to be following you over there. So you could avoid the best corner on the team in that way. But I do think that teams have kind of taken the approach of make sure you have someone over top, and I'm not saying to double him, but to have a safety over top at some point, play physical at the line of scrimmage. And if you can keep someone in a throwing lane underneath, he's not going to get the ball quickly. A lot of Malik Neighbors' touches have come on kind of design plays where Brian Dable is like, hey, we're scheming you open here. Like we need to get the ball to Malik Neighbors. And especially for a Giants offense that has dealt with offensive line issues and you don't have the time that you had earlier in the season where you could say, hey, we'll wait for a play to develop and then have Malik Neighbors available. You don't have that anymore. Pressure is getting in a lot quicker and they're getting to Daniel Jones a lot quicker. And again, Daniel Jones is not playing as confident as he once was earlier this season when he could have been able to get the ball to Malik Neighbors 11 times a game. He could have been targeting him. You don't get that luxury anymore. And it was always a thing when Malik Neighbors started hot that defenses are going to adjust. They're going to have someone bracketing inside or just maybe just playing a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage there so you watch the underneath stuff more frequently. But Malik Neighbors, I still think he's going to be very good despite the production dropping off. It's just teams are adjusting because he is the guy on this offense right now, and you've got to do everything you can to slow him down. And I think that that's exactly what they're doing. And again, when you can generate pressure on Daniel Jones, you can keep him from getting the ball to his premier target.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's talk about the Giants defense versus the Panthers offense. Now, the Panthers head coach Dave Canales said it's going to be Bryce Young this week. Young quarterback, probably someone who you can rattle a little bit if you can get the pressure. But I think the key matchup, and you tell me if you disagree, is going to be the Panthers running game against the Giants run defense, which has struggled. When you look at that matchup, Brandon, what can the Giants do to keep that running game in check?
There is a man named Dexter Lawrence that is going to be very helpful there because, and I know every single week we talk about Dexter Lawrence. It's crazy. It's almost like he's an elite football player. But the Panthers run game is very zone heavy, inside and outside zone. And when you have a guy that can two gap on the interior, he can really help eliminate those inside zone runs. And so outside, yes, it's going to require the rest of your defensive line being physical at the point of attack and your linebackers coming in and filling gaps. But I do think that you take away a lot of the interior run game with just Dexter Lawrence's presence. The moment he comes off the field, I expect the Panthers to start going up tempo and start trying to get the ball in the middle, and you can have that inside out rushing attack. But I do think that the Dexter Lawrence plays a big part in being able to stop that interior zone run. But look, the Panthers spent $100 million almost on the offensive line this past offseason. It's really working out. Chuba Hubbard has been killing it. And I know that a lot of people have kind of soured on Chuba throughout his NFL career, and college isn't exactly translatable. But when he played with a similar run game in college, Chuba was a 2,200-yard rusher at Oklahoma State. He was in the Heisman candidacy. He was really good with that style. And then you bring this offense here with Dave Canales, and it's a seamless transition for him to get kind of back to that running style of we're going to run wide zone, inside zone. But I do think Dexter Lawrence really stifles that interior zone run and should make the Panthers a little bit one-dimensional with Bryce Young throwing the football.
Brandon, when we look at Deonte Banks, who I think it's fair to say he's not having the best year, how much of that is physical, mental, or just flat out attitude in your estimation?
I think it's entirely mental. I think that playing corner, a lot of it is just mental. You're going to get beat. You're going to get beat. You're going to clamp people up. It's going to happen all the time. And your confidence has to stay high at all times when you're playing corner. And I don't think that Deonte Banks has had his confidence at the top that it's been. And I think because of that, it's kind of forced him to, or not forced him, but he's kind of shut down. It feels like his confidence got shot and he has not rebounded from that. And that he's kind of shut down mentally on the effort plays and things like that. And I think that's really damning for a corner. Maybe a game like this one where you should be able to really slow down a passing attack. Maybe that helps you. But I do think that it's really tough as a corner when you lose that confidence to get it back. And when you lose it to the point where it seems like, again, like you're shutting down, your body language isn't great. It's absolutely concerning. I don't think that they should cut him. Like I remember someone tweeting at you this week. I don't think that makes a ton of sense, but you could have the conversation in the offseason about maybe a change of scenery is best for him. But I still think he's very talented. I think that you just got to get his mental right. And I think corner outside of quarterback, I think corner is maybe the most important position for that mental aspect.
How much of it do you think is a result of Shane Bowen playing more zone as opposed to man, which is what Wink played when he was here? And that seemed to be a better fit for what Banks likes to do and has done well.
Yeah, it's absolutely part of it. There's different players like different things, of course. And I think at corner, a lot, and I only speak about corner because it was the position that I played. So it's the only one that I could actually say I did. But I think that some guys want to be physical at the line of scrimmage, and that helps get them kind of amped up and get them into the game. And you're not as physical when you're sitting in coverage a lot. You're going to be 7 yards off sometimes. And you see it at every level, every team, every sport. There's guys who like to do certain things and are really good at those things. And I think Deonte Banks, throughout his college career and the NFL career, has been pretty damn good in man coverage, specifically press man. That was what made him a first round pick. That's what it was. He was a press man corner. He was perfect for wing. Not so much a fit there anymore with press man and playing zone now.
All right, final question for you, Brandon. What is the X factor in this game? Both teams obviously coming over Thursday night, the time zone difference, a new environment, the routine has been changed up a little bit. But if you had to point to one thing that you think is going to be the deciding factor in this game, what is it and who do you think it favors?
I think it has to be being able to throw the football with because I feel like every time we watch these games, whoever throws the football better wins these games. They're always going to be messy and ugly. That's a damn near guarantee when you're talking about a Europe game. They're always messy, always ugly. But I think being able to throw the ball effectively will keep you ahead of the sticks, keep you moving the ball. And again, a lot of these guys, they are jet lagged. They are feeling a little iffy. Take advantage of that, especially on defense, and try to make them have a little mental lapse, try to take advantage of those. And I think it favors the Giants. If the Giants don't win this game, that's just a further indictment of just how down in the dumps this team is. And it's not to disrespect the Panthers. They haven't been playing well. This is the movable object versus the very resistible force. And I think that the Giants should still win this game. And if you don't, it's damning.
If they don't, it's going to be a long week for us. Well, long 2 weeks because we've got the bye week coming up on New York Giants on SI. All right, he is Brandon Olsen on Patricia Traina. Make sure you keep it here on New York Giants SI as we bring you all the coverage leading up to and beyond the game. Don't forget also next week, General Manager Joe Shane is supposed to talk to the media. So maybe we'll get some answers. Maybe we won't. We'll have to see. But we will have it all for you here on New York Giants on SI.